the shadow in cell 125. Before we drop you into this darkness, hit that subscribe button, if you dare. The deeper we go, the harder it is to come back. The hallway outside cell 125 was soaked in red emergency lights when officers found the body. The alarm had been blaring for less than 2 minutes, but every guard who rushed in already knew the name tied to the chaos. Thomas Silverstein, the inmate they whispered about in the break rooms, the one whose reputation was carved into every correctional officer's training manual, the one who made even hardened prison guards feel the cold weight of fear settle between their shoulders. But this wasn't ADX yet. It was years before the concrete fortress was built. This was USP Marion, once just another maximum security prison, until the day it became the most locked-down facility in the country. And Silverstein was the reason why. The scene was eerily silent. A guard lay motionless on the walkway, his keys several feet away, his radio cracked against a cinder block wall. Officers approached with their weapons drawn, but they didn't have to guess what happened. They had seen Silverstein do this before. They just didn't understand how he did it this time. Warden Benjamin Holt arrived moments later, scanning the blood-splattered walkway with a clenched jaw. Holt wasn't a man easily shaken. He'd worked riots, gang wars, and violent outbursts across multiple prisons. But nothing unsettled him the way Thomas Silverstein did. "Lock it all down," he ordered quietly. "Nobody moves without clearance." As staff swept a tier, the same questions echoed through their minds. Silverstein was already in a high-security wing. He was isolated, monitored, restricted. Yet somehow, every time violence erupted, his name surfaced. Officers checked his cell, expecting signs of struggle. But when they opened the door, they found him sitting cross-legged on the floor, calm, breathing slowly, eyes fixed on a far corner like he was meditating. "Tom, what happened on the range?" an officer asked. Silverstein didn't turn his head. "People do what people choose to do," he murmured. "Sometimes the walls listen. Sometimes they don't." It was never a confession, never a denial, just a riddle, wrapped in a tone so emotionless it chilled the room. The investigation began immediately. Holt pulled the security tapes, reviewing every second leading up to the incident. But that only deepened the mystery. The assault happened in a blind spot, one of the few corners the old cameras didn't cover. It was almost as if someone knew exactly where the system broke down. 2 investigators arrived from the Bureau. One of them, Special Agent Laura Kemp, had been researching inmate-led violence inside federal prisons for years. She knew Silverstein's name well. Everyone in her line of work did. His violent history, his alliances, his cold, calculated patience. But as she studied the initial report, something unsettled her. The timeline didn't match Silverstein's typical patterns. The method was too sloppy, too rushed. Whoever hurt the officer didn't act with his trademark precision. Kemp walked the walkway 3 times, imagining the angle of attack, the direction of blood spray, the distance the keys had flown. Something felt wrong. This wasn't Silverstein's style. But the other agents already had their conclusion. "He's done it before," one of them insisted. "This fits." "No," Kemp said thoughtfully. "It doesn't." Someone wanted to fit. Meanwhile, rumors spread through the cell blocks. Some inmates whispered that Silverstein had found a way to influence guards. Others claimed he could predict staff routines better than the administration itself. But there was one rumor that caught Kemp's attention. A claim that Silverstein had been communicating silently with an inmate 2 tiers away. No letters, no notes, nothing traceable, just signals. She documented the rumor, but had no proof. Yet something in her gut tightened. If Silverstein wasn't the one who struck the blow, was he the one who orchestrated it? That possibility changed everything. Warden Holt expanded the lockdown. Officers were ordered to rotate duties to prevent predictable patterns. Every cell was searched. Every shiv, every smuggled scrap of paper, every sharpened toothbrush was cataloged. But nothing connected anyone else to the attack. Every trail circled back to the same name. Still, Kemp nagged at the inconsistencies. She requested approval to examine older logs, movement patterns, guard assignments, Silverstein's disciplinary records, hoping something would break open. Hours into her search, Kemp's eyes froze on a single line item, one so small most investigators would have ignored it. A guard, who wasn't supposed to be on that walkway at all. Her pulse spiked. She ran the name through the staff directory, then pulled his assignment history. Something didn't add up. His shift had been quietly changed just 48 hours earlier. No explanation. No authorization trail. Someone moved him. Someone placed him. And someone wanted him dead. The question now wasn't just who killed him, but why this officer? And as Kemp prepared to confront Warden Holt with her suspicions, alarms began blaring again, this time from a different wing. Something was spiraling fast. Life inside the concrete box. ADX Florence was unlike any other prison in the United States. Nicknamed the Alcatraz of the Rockies, it was built to contain the inmates who could not be controlled anywhere else. For the man who would be known as the monster of ADX, this place was both a cage and a mirror. Every inch of the facility was designed to limit human contact. Steel-reinforced walls, sound-dampening concrete, remote control doors, and a schedule so strict that most days felt identical. It was a world where the environment itself acted as a correctional officer. Inside a cell, no wider than the span of his arms, he spent up to 23 hours every day alone, monitored by cameras, sensors, and small shatterproof windows that offered only a slice of sky. Even the recreation area provided little relief. It was essentially a concrete pen with tall walls and steel grates overhead, sometimes called the cage. For many inmates, the isolation was crushing, but for him, it was strangely familiar. Years spent in high-security units across different prisons had conditioned him to solitude. While other prisoners shouted through vents or attempted to communicate by tapping on walls, he remained quiet. His silence unsettled many officers. They described him as controlled, calculating, and impossible to read. The prison staff understood that he wasn't loud, but he was dangerous in the way that very calm people sometimes are, unpredictable without warning. Yet, despite his reputation, the day-to-day reality of life inside ADX forced even the toughest inmates into routine. Meals slid through a steel slot. Showers were scheduled and escorted. Medical checkups happened behind secure barriers. Over time, the rigid structure of the place began stripping away the persona he once used to intimidate others. Without an audience, without a gang, without anyone to command or manipulate, he faced something he had never confronted before: himself. Officers noticed subtle changes. Less aggression, more silence, occasionally long periods of staring at the wall, as though trying to make sense of a life defined by concrete and consequences. But even with those shifts, one truth remained. Inside ADX, people either broke or hardened, and no one knew which path he was headed toward. The hallway outside the restricted housing unit was unnervingly silent, the kind of silence that made every correctional officer's radio feel heavier on their hip. Warden Hale walked in front, his keys clinking like distant warning bells, while Agent Pierce stayed close behind him, eyes scanning every shadow as if the walls themselves were listening. They both knew what they were walking into wasn't routine. For the first time in decades, Thomas Silverstein had broken his silence and asked to speak. Inside his reinforced cell, Silverstein waited on the floor, seated neatly like a man preparing to deliver a final confession. The fluorescent lights above him flickered, casting pale stripes across his face. When the steel door slid open, he didn't look up. He just spoke. "You want your answers," he said. "Fine, but you better understand something. None of this end the way you think." Agent Pierce pulled a recorder from her pocket and took a careful step forward. "Thomas, we found a map under your bed. The route, the timing, the list of staff rotations. You're telling me that wasn't yours?" Silverstein's lips curled into the faintest smile. "Of course it's mine, but it's not what you think it is." Warden Hale stiffened. "Then explain it, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you were planning something that could have gotten people killed." Silverstein finally lifted his eyes. Cold, sharp, calculated. The stare that earned him a lifetime in solitary. "That map," he began, "wasn't a plan to escape. It was a plan to warn you." Both Hale and Pierce glanced at each other, unsure if he was manipulating them or genuinely revealing something bigger. Silverstein continued, Someone inside your system, someone who thinks they're smarter than all of you, is using me as a distraction. Pierce's jaw tightened. Who? Silverstein leaned back slightly. You ever wonder why the guards are more nervous lately? Why certain doors stay unlocked a little too long? Why some inmates got transferred out quietly at night, without the usual paperwork trails? Hale frowned. He had wondered. But to hear it from a man whose very existence reshaped federal prison security felt like a blade turning between his ribs. There's a group forming, Silverstein said. Not gangs, not Aryans. Something new. They're organized, they're patient, and they're using the myth of Thomas Silverstein to hide behind. He pointed toward the door with two fingers chained together by steel cuffs. While you're all busy watching me, they're moving freely. I've been locked in concrete for decades. Warden, how the hell do you think I, of all people, got access to that map? Someone wanted you to find it. Pierce's pulse quickened. You're saying it's a setup? I'm saying, Silverstein replied, you've got bigger problems than the man inside this box. Hale stepped forward. His voice was low. Names. Give me a name. Silverstein shook his head. Not my job. My job was surviving long enough to warn you. For the first time since the interview began, Silverstein looked older, not weaker, but burdened, as if the walls around him had pressed a lifetime of weight onto his shoulders. Pierce swallowed hard. Why warn us? After everything? Silverstein's eyes drifted toward the floor. Because even a monster doesn't like being used. Before Pierce could respond, the emergency lights suddenly snapped on. Red strobes pulsed down the hallway. An alarm echoed through the concrete, like a heartbeat gone wild. Unit breach detected. Hale cursed under his breath and reached for his radio. Control, report. What's going on? No answer. Just static. Silverstein didn't move. His voice stayed calm. Told you. It's already started. Pierce tightened her grip on the recorder. Thomas, what did you know? How far does this go? Silverstein let out a slow breath. Farther than you think. But this part is on you now. The hallway darkened for a moment as the backup power kicked in. Distant shouting echoed from the far end of the unit. Officers yelling, boots slamming. Something heavy crashing against steel. Pierce turned toward the door. Hale followed her. Silverstein closed his eyes. Run, he whispered. You're already behind. Pierce and Hale hurried out of the cell, the metal door sliding shut behind them with a thundering finality. The alarm screamed louder. Radios crackled with fragmented warnings. Something inside ADX Florence, the most secure prison in America, had slipped loose. And whatever it wasn't Thomas Silverstein. As they sprinted down the hallway, Pierce looked back one last time. Through the narrow slit in the steel door, Silverstein stared after them, unblinking, as if he knew exactly how this night would end. He always knew. And if this story was good, hit like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.